Darren Payne just dropped the most controversial statement of the season, and nobody in Washington can believe what came out of his mouth. The suspension is over, but the controversy is just beginning. Meanwhile, Dan Quinn confirms the return of two offensive weapons that could change the entire playoff picture. And Terry McLaurin finally breaks his silence about his injury with a confession that should have Denver's defense shaking. 3 bombs rocking the Ashburn facilities right now. Stick around, because what's coming will leave you speechless. News 1. Payne's explosive confession. The one-game suspension is over, but Darren Payne's scandal is just getting started. The Commanders' defensive tackle returned to practice this week after serving his punishment for punching Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Lions, and what he said to the media left everyone's jaw on the floor. When asked what he learned from the incident, Payne showed not a single ounce of remorse. His answer was direct and brutal. "I just know next time. Just do it in the moment instead of wait after the play. Just do it in the moment." Let me repeat that so it's crystal clear. Darren Payne is not saying he regrets punching a rival receiver. He's not saying he learned to control his emotions. He's saying next time he'll do it faster so the refs don't see it. This is not an apology. This is a declaration of intent. It's basically admitting he'll do it again, but with more cunning. The context makes all of this even more explosive. During the game against Detroit in Week 11, Payne connected a clean punch to St. Brown's face, apparently, without provocation. The cameras caught everything. The NFL acted fast and suspended him 1 game. But then video emerged showing St. Brown had started the whole altercation with shoves and words. The Lions receiver got fined, but Payne took the harsher punishment because officials only saw the retaliation. Now Payne is publicly saying his only mistake was the timing. Not the act itself, not the violence, just the moment he decided to respond. This is problematic on multiple levels. First, because the NFL is trying to eliminate this type of conduct from the game. Second, because Payne is an 8-season veteran who should know better. Third, because he's sending a terrible message to younger players who see him as a leader on that defensive line. Dan Quinn hasn't publicly commented on these statements, but you can bet internally there are serious conversations happening. The Commanders are in the thick of a playoff race. They have a 7-win, 5-loss record. They cannot afford to lose one of their best defenders to another stupid suspension. And with these words, Payne is basically painting a target on his back for refs to watch him closely on every play. The irony is delicious. Payne has 35 career sacks, but only 1 this season. His production has dropped dramatically. And instead of focusing on improving his game, he's giving statements that make him the league's villain. Washington fans are divided. Some applaud his attitude of not backing down. Others believe he's being immature and selfish, putting his ego above the team. What nobody can deny is Payne just created a massive public relations problem for the organization. Every time he steps on the field now, cameras will be waiting for his next move. Every aggressive block will be analyzed. Every word he says on the field will be amplified. He became the most watched player on Washington's defense, and not for good reasons. The question now is how Quinn responds. Does he bench him for a quarter? Does he strip leadership responsibilities? Or does he simply let Payne learn the lesson the hard way when the NFL comes down on him with another longer suspension? Because with these statements, Payne is basically begging the league to punish him again. And here's the craziest part of all. Payne is not technically wrong. Refs almost always see the retaliation and not the provocation. That's a fact of football. But admitting it publicly and saying he'll simply adjust his strategy to not get caught is incredibly dumb. It's like a thief walking out of court and saying next time he'll wear gloves to not leave fingerprints. The Commanders face the Broncos this Sunday. Payne will be back in the lineup, and you can bet Denver players heard exactly what he said. They're going to provoke him. They're going to push him. They're going to try to get him out of the game emotionally. And if Payne falls into the trap and does exactly what he promised to do, Washington could lose their most experienced defensive tackle right when they need him most. This is a situation that didn't have to happen. A simple apology, an acknowledgement that he made a mistake. That's all he needed to say. But PAYNE chose the path of confrontation. He chose to double down instead of backing off. And now the entire league is waiting to see if he really has the guts to follow through on his promise, or if this was just empty words from a player frustrated by his lack of production. What do you think about this? Is PAYNE being honest or stupid? Leave your comment below. News 2. Offensive weapons return. Dan Quinn just confirmed what everyone in Washington was waiting to hear. Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown are ready to return, and the head coach is not hiding his excitement about what this means for the Commanders' offense. After weeks operating with a receiver room decimated by injuries, Washington finally gets back two of its most lethal weapons just in time for the final stretch of the season. Quinn was clear and direct in his Wednesday press conference. When you have three receivers active at the same time, it opens up the entire field. Instead of defenses focusing on stopping one player doing one thing, now you have multiple threats in multiple positions. That's what makes the difference. That's what we're looking for. Let's break down what this really means. The Commanders have been depending almost exclusively on Deebo Samuel Sr. in recent weeks. Deebo has been fantastic, but when you're the only real threat on the field, defenses can dedicate double coverage without consequences. They can put their best corner on you and also send help over the top. That severely limits what you can do offensively. Now, with McLaurin back, everything changes. Terry is this team's #1 receiver, period. He's the franchise's all-time leading receiver in yards since arriving in 2019. He has the most reliable hands on the roster. He runs routes with surgical precision. And most importantly, he can win one-on-one against any corner in the league. His presence forces defenses to respect both sides of the field because Quinn confirmed Terry will play both right and left. Noah Brown adds another completely different dimension. Brown is 6'2" and weighs 225 pounds. He's a physical receiver who can block in the running game and also win contact battles on intermediate routes. His versatility allows the Commanders to run more varied formations. He can line up outside. He can move into the slot. He can even play in tight end formations. That flexibility is pure gold for an offensive coordinator. Quinn specifically mentioned vertical shots. He said all three receivers, McLaurin, Brown, and Deebo, can stretch the field deep. That's critical because defenses have been stacking the box against Washington's running game, knowing Marcus Mariota doesn't have enough options to punish them over the top. Now they have to respect the deep threat, or they're going to pay the price. Mariota also spoke about the return of these veterans, and his comment was revealing. We like our matchups with any of those guys outside. And when you add what Deebo and Zach Ertz can do inside, that creates a lot of versatility. It creates advantages. Mariota knows having experienced receivers back means better timing on routes. It means fewer communication errors. It means more confidence to throw into tight windows because you know your receiver is going to be exactly where he should be. The timing is perfect. The Commanders are 7-5. They're in playoff position, but barely. Every game from now until the end of the season is essentially an elimination game. They cannot afford to keep losing because the offense can't move the ball. McLaurin and Brown return right when they're needed most. But here's the million-dollar question. How healthy are they really? McLaurin has been battling a quad injury since week 8. He tried to play against Kansas City, had a good game with 54 yards and a touchdown, but he re-injured it in that game and has been out the last 3 weeks. Now he says he feels better than ever after the bye week. Says he has no tightness, says his acceleration is there. But can we trust that? NFL history is full of players who returned too soon from muscle injuries and ended up making everything worse. Quads are particularly treacherous because they're involved in literally every explosive movement a receiver makes. Cutting, accelerating, jumping, everything depends on those muscles. If McLaurin is not 100% healthy, he could re-injure it on the first deep route he runs. Quinn clearly trusts both players are ready. He wouldn't have announced them publicly if he had serious doubts. But we also know coaches sometimes have to take calculated risks when they're in playoff survival mode. The question is whether this risk is worth it. The answer is probably yes, because even an 80% McLaurin is better than most #3 receivers in the league. His mere presence on the field changes how defenses have to play, and if Brown is also available suddenly, you have real depth at the position for the first time in weeks. Quinn mentioned something else that's important. He said Debo can now play multiple positions. That means he's not tied to one role. He can move all over the formation, creating mismatches. He can line up in the slot against a slower linebacker. He can go outside against a smaller corner. That mobility is what makes modern offenses so hard to defend. The Broncos have a solid defense. They're allowing only 210 yards per game through the air. They have good corners. They have a decent pass rush, but they haven't faced a Commanders offense with all its weapons available. This could be the game where Washington finally shows what it's capable of when fully healthy. The offensive line also benefits from this return. When you have receivers who can win quickly, defenses can't send extra pressure as freely. They have to keep players back in coverage. That gives Mariota more time in the pocket. It gives the running game more space to operate. Everything is connected. Quinn ended his comments saying, "This is what they'd been waiting for, having everyone connected at the same time. That's the key. It's not just having good players. It's having them all healthy and playing together at the same time. Chemistry matters. Timing matters. And after weeks of constant rotation due to injuries, they're finally going to have consistency in the receiver room." Washington fans should be excited, but also cautiously optimistic, because we've seen this movie before. Players return from injury. They play one quarter. They re-injure themselves. And suddenly, you're back at square one. The real test is not whether McLaurin and Brown can play this Sunday. It's whether they can stay healthy for the next 6 weeks. If they can do that, the Commanders have a real chance to make noise in the playoffs. If they can't, this promising season could end in disappointment. It all comes down to health. And right now, Quinn is betting everything his stars are ready to shine again. News 3. McLaurin breaks silence. Terry McLaurin finally broke his silence about his quad injury, and what he said should make Washington fans breathe easier. The Commanders' star receiver is not just planning to play against Denver this Sunday. He's convinced this time is different. This time he's actually healthy, and this time he's not going to make the same mistake that left him out the last 3 weeks. McLaurin was brutally honest in his assessment. "I just feel like I don't really have any tightness in my injury area. I feel like my acceleration is there, just kind of like that next gear that I have. I'm just not really thinking about it at all. So anytime I can be out there, I always put myself out there. But I definitely feel better this time around, and the ramp-up process has been really good." Those words are music to any Commanders fans' ears, because the last time McLaurin said he was ready to play was against Kansas City in Week 8. And we all know how that ended. Terry played, had a good game, 3 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown on 4 targets. But he re-injured the quad during the game and has been out since. The difference this time, according to McLaurin, is he actually had time to heal. The Week 12 bye came at the perfect moment. It gave him 2 full weeks without contact, without full speed practice, just treatment and recovery. And now he says he feels completely different compared to when he tried to return against the Chiefs. Let's talk about what this means tactically. McLaurin is the most important receiver in this offense. It's not debatable. He's played only 4 games this season due to health issues, but when he's on the field, everything changes. He's the only receiver on the roster who can consistently win against one-on-one coverage. He's the only one with the speed to stretch the field vertically, and he's the only one with the experience and leadership to be the voice of that receiver room. Without McLaurin, the Commanders have been depending on a rotation of young receivers and Debo Samuel Sr. Debo has been fantastic, but he can't do it all alone. Rival defenses have been able to focus completely on him, knowing nobody else represents a real threat. That has to change if Washington wants any chance of making the playoffs. McLaurin mentioned something key in his comments. He said he's not thinking about the injury at all. That's huge, because muscle injuries like quads are as much mental as physical. If you're running a route and in the back of your mind there's a little voice saying, "What if it breaks again?" you're going to hesitate. You're going to slow down right before the cut. You're going to protect that leg unconsciously. And that's enough to ruin your effectiveness. The fact Terry says he's not thinking about it means he trusts his body. He trusts the work he did during the bye week, and he trusts he can play at full speed without risk of re-injury. That confidence is what separates good receivers from great ones. The great ones can block out the noise and just play. Now let's talk about what his return means for Marcus Mariota. The veteran quarterback has been filling the gap while Jayden Daniels recovers from his own injury. Mariota has been solid, but not spectacular. Part of that is because he hasn't had reliable weapons on the perimeter. With McLaurin back, Mariota has a target he can trust on third and long. He has someone who can win 50-50 balls. He has a veteran who knows how to find soft spots in zone coverage. The Broncos are going to test McLaurin early. You can bet on that. They're going to see if he's really healthy or playing hurt. They're going to send him on deep routes to see if he has that explosiveness. They're going to hit him at the catch point to see if he protects that leg. It's the game within the game. And McLaurin has to prove he can take the punishment. The good news is Terry is one of the toughest receivers in the league. He's not a player who shies away from contact. He's not someone who's going to come off the field after the first hit. He's played through pain his entire career. The question is not whether he's tough enough. The question is whether his body is physically ready to handle the workload. Dan Quinn clearly believes it is. He wouldn't have put McLaurin on the practice report as a limited participant if he had serious doubts. And Terry himself is saying all the right things about feeling better than before. But here's the brutal reality. We won't really know until he plays, until he runs that first deep route at full speed, until he makes that first explosive cut, until he absorbs that first hit from a safety. If McLaurin goes out and plays 60 snaps without issues, the Commanders suddenly look like a completely different team. You have Terry outside. You have Noah Brown on the other side. You have Debo moving all over the formation. You have Zach Ertz in the middle. That's an offense that can compete with anyone in the league. But if McLaurin plays 10 snaps and has to come out because the quad is not responding, Washington is in serious trouble. Because then you not only lost your best receiver again, you also wasted a week of preparation designing a game plan around him. And now you have to make emergency adjustments in the middle of the game. McLaurin knows what's at stake. He's been in the league long enough to understand his availability is more important than his production in any individual game. If he's not 100% healthy, the smart decision is to wait another week. But he also understands the team needs him now, that they're in playoff survival mode, that every game matters. So he's taking a calculated gamble. He's betting his body is ready. He's betting the rehab work was enough. He's betting he can play through any minor discomfort without risking a major injury. And frankly, that's the bet he has to make if the Commanders are going to have any chance of getting to January. Fans should be excited to see Terry back on the field, but they should also be prepared for the possibility this is a gradual process. Maybe he doesn't get his full workload in the first game. Maybe they limit him to certain situations. Maybe he only plays on first and second down, and they take him out on third. That would be the smart decision to protect him long term. But knowing McLaurin and knowing the Commanders' situation, he's probably going to be out there for every important snap. He's going to want to prove he's back. He's going to want to make a statement against a good Denver defense. And if he can do that without re-injuring himself, Washington suddenly has a real chance to do something special in the second half of this season. It all starts this Sunday. It all starts with Terry McLaurin's health. And if his words are true, if he really feels better than ever, then the Commanders are about to show the league what they can do when fully armed. Time to find out. 3 stories defining the future of the Washington Commanders right now. Darren Payne creating controversy with statements that could bring him more trouble. Dan Quinn celebrating the return of his offensive weapons right when he needs them most. And Terry McLaurin promising this time is different. That this time he's actually healthy. 3 narratives that are going to explode this weekend against Denver. The question now is how this team responds. Can Payne keep his emotions in check, or is he going to explode again? Can McLaurin and Brown stay healthy, or are we going to see another round of injuries? Can the offense finally function with all its pieces, or is this too little too late? All those answers come Sunday. If you want to be the first to know the latest news firsthand, before anyone else, subscribe right now. Because this is just beginning. And what's coming in the next few weeks is going to be epic. Don't miss it.